We're here at Regent University in Virginia Beach. After college, I spent a year traveling the world with the renowned apologist Josh McDowell, preparing myself to be the next him. But then about 8 months into my time with him is when I began to question the credibility of the stuff he was preaching and the stuff I was going to be preaching and was already preaching. And I read this quote by Thomas Fuller, "Truth fears no trial." And from that quote, I realized that if truth wants to be challenged, only false ideas fear being criticized. And so after my time with McDowell, I took some time, put my career plans on hold, and then just for the first time ever, completely challenged everything I grew up believing. And a lot of that took place right here, because after my time with McDowell was done in May of 2007, I needed to still do something, so I came to grad school here at Regent University and studied global politics and journalism. And it was from the fall semester of then to March, the fateful March night on the second floor of this library, during that whole time where I was just challenging everything I grew up believing. And that search kind of came to a conclusion, or at least it hit a milestone one late night here when I finally had made my decision that I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't become an apologist because there was no evidence. So I'm going to go back to this spot now and actually see where probably the most seminal moment of my life took place. Here it is. This is where it happened. Right here when I came to Regent, this is where I did a lot of my studying. And during that 10 months after my time with McDowell, this is often where I would sit when I was going through that process of challenging everything. And it was right here. Then it was a bunch of study cubicles where I was sitting at night after I finally came to my conclusion. And I was reading the very copy of this very book, The Empty Tomb, Jesus Beyond the Grave. And I wasn't done with it. I was about halfway through it when I just closed it and leaned back and looked at the wall in front of me for about 30 silent minutes as I just was going through this disillusionment, because it was the analogy I like to use is the canyon of doubt. And the canyon of doubt is here. Here's the cliff of unbelief and the cliff of belief. And evidence can shrink the canyon, but then faith gets us the rest of the way, and it bridges the doubt so we can get to belief. But during that 10 months, as piece by piece all of Josh McDowell's arguments lost credibility, the canyon of doubt kept getting wider and stretching my bridge of faith to its capacity. And it was here that night where finally the canyon of doubt got too wide, and I could no longer connect my bridge of faith to belief. And after those 30 silent minutes, sitting right here, staring at that wall, I finally said out loud to myself, I don't know what the truth is, neither does anybody else. I'm an agnostic. And I've been a lion and tiger trainer. I've survived cancer. I was an officer in the Army. I've traveled the world, but the seminal moment of my life took place right here in a study cubicle. And from that moment where I finally decided I can't follow this stuff anymore, and I'm an agnostic, inspired all of my writing that came afterwards. And so far, this is what that moment that took place right here has inspired. These 7 books with hopefully many more to come. And it feels kind of weird, almost nostalgic being here. I've been back one time since, and it was many, many years ago. And I took a picture of the cubicle where I was sitting, and it's now framed and it sits on top of my bookshelf. And yeah, I wish I could have taken that study cubicle home with me and just put it somewhere in a corner of my house. Yeah, it's weird being back here. Well, after that moment over there in the cubicle, I walked through the bookshelves over here and called my friend Ryan from college, who was also a preacher. And I was trying to, hoping he could maybe talk me out of it, of the decision I had just made, but I realized he is in the same place I was. And so it just kind of reaffirmed the decision I had just made over there. And he and I have been close friends ever since. And after that moment in the library, when I finally was honest with myself that I'm an agnostic, I don't know what the truth is, I walked outside. It was probably 11:30, midnight, and I was kind of having a little bit of a panic attack because I knew my whole life the dream of writing and speaking and being the next Josh McDowell, that dream was probably done. And I didn't have a plan B because the military wasn't letting me in because of cancer. But anyway, I just kind of stopped right here in front of the library and just kind of trying to regather myself and gather my thoughts. And the irony of the moment wasn't lost on me, because over here is the cross-shaped building where the 700 Club is filmed, and then over here is Pat Robertson's house. So in one of the most dogmatic places on the planet is where I fully freed my mind of dogma. And I had that thought in that moment. But then I went from here and I drove to the boardwalk along the beach, and just for 2 hours was crying out, yelling out to the sky, God, if this stuff is true, you've got to come to me, because I have gone as far as I can. And didn't hear anything, obviously, and for about 3 weeks I kept coming back here, and I was having a real hard time trying to just figure out my mind. And then I finally called Josh McDowell and said, we got to talk. And it was about 3 weeks after that night on the second floor of this library where I finally became an agnostic. I flew to Iowa, where Josh's tour was taking place, and we had about an hour-long debate, just he and I, in the lobby of the hotel. And I realized after that he didn't have any other arguments than what I'd already discredited. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin. I flew back here, and I lasted here about another 2-3 months where I just couldn't be here anymore. I couldn't be around this atmosphere, and I went back to Ohio.